Welcome back, folks, to another episode of Infinite Podcast. I'm here with Simon, diving deep once again. So, Stoicism, huh? They say it's not about not caring, but choosing what to care about. Indifferent to traffic jams, rude people. Sure, I get that. But indifference can't mean ignoring all life's ups and downs, right, see?
Indifference is like choosing your battles, right? Traffic jam? Be cool. Put on some tunes. Rude people? Smile and wave, boys. Smile and wave. But you can't just zone out on everything, Joe. Gotta have some fire in the belly for the big stuff.
For sure, Simon, choosing your battles is key. Being chill in a jam or with jerks saves so much stress. That sense of control, it feels empowering, man. But yeah, you're right. We need that fire for the things that truly matter. Family, dreams, values. Apathy? Nope, not on my watch.
Empowering? I'll tell you what's empowering, Joe. Throwing a curveball at life when it expects you to play it cool. Preserve that fire for the win. But stoic indifference for tiny annoyances? Sure, sign me up. The trick is not letting that chilly vibe freeze over the stuff that gets you all revved up. Can't turn into an ice sculpture, man. Gotta know when to melt.
Totally get your point, Simon. Staying cool without becoming cold, right? How do you think we can apply that to not sweating the small stuff while keeping the passion alive for what really counts?
Joe, this one time I was at the grocery store, right? In line, and this guy flips out because the price of his apples goes up by like 10 cents. Starts a scene over it. There I am, watching him huffing and puffing, and I think, not worth it. So later that day, my sister calls. She's stressing over some big job interview. Now that's apple price worthy. I'm all in on pep talks and rehearsing questions with her for hours. She got the job, man. Apples to apples. Know what I mean? Priorities.
That's a perfect illustration, Simon. Minor setbacks like a small spike in apple prices are trivial. But supporting your sister, that's vital. Stoicism distinguishes between things we can control and what we can't. Like Epictetus said, it's not what happens to you, but how you react that matters. Stoics aim for tranquility, focusing their energy only on impactful areas. Basically, it's mental economy 101, and being fully present for someone that cultivates deep relationships, crucial for our well-being. It's about balance.
Mental economy 101? Sure, Joe, but you ever think that maybe Stoics got it a bit too easy? Like, oh, I can't control this, so I'ma chill here and sip my tea. No rush, no fuss. But life ain't a calm river. Sometimes it's a stormy sea. What if by embracing indifference a bit too much, we miss the boat on change, like actually fixing stuff instead of just being cool with it? You gotta stir the pot to make magic happen, right? Can't just wait for the stew to cook itself.
Simon, you have a point there. Stoicism isn't about passive resignation, though. It's knowing when to act and when to let go. If you stir the pot when it's not needed, you might end up burning the stew instead of improving it. But when action's required, that's where virtue comes into play in Stoicism, acting with wisdom, courage, and justice. Indifference is strategic. It's being proactive rather than reactive. So, sure, reject apathy, but embrace thoughtful responses. There's immense power in that restraint.
Oh, this takes me back, Joe, to high school baseball. See, I was up to bat, bases loaded, final inning, we were down by 2 runs. My old man yells, "Be the hero." No pressure, right? So there's the pitch, and it's a ball. But I didn't swing at it. Coach always said, know your pitches. Second one comes, another no-go. But on the third, bam, there goes my swing, straight into left field. 2 runners score. We win the game. That's like life, man. You don't have to jump at every pitch. Wait for the one that matters. Then you give it all you've got. Teachable moment. Knowing when to hold off is as crucial as knowing when to swing big.
You nailed it, man. Life's full of curveballs, and knowing when to swing is an art. Embracing strategic indifference is like waiting for the right pitch in baseball. You don't want to waste your energy swinging at bad pitches. Stoics are like the ultimate batters, keeping that energy in reserve until it counts. It's easy to get riled up over every minor annoyance or obstacle. But the key is to decide which pitches, if any, are worth your swing. Makes you think. Where else might we benefit from just watching the ball go by?
Man, Joe, that hits home. My grandma always said life's too short to dance with ugly problems. It's all about picking the pretty ones worth your groove. At work, Emails flooded like Noah's Ark. Instead of sinking, I tackle 3 a day. The rest can wait. On the road, if someone's tailgating me, I don't boil over. That's their gremlin, not mine. Less fuming, more jamming to classic rock. Know what I mean? We'd have oceans of chill if we all just watched more balls go by and swung at life's sweet pitches.
Your grandma was onto something with the ugly problems saying. Stoics taught about focusing on our own actions and attitudes rather than external events. It's psychological triage, efficiently sorting problems based on what we can influence. Research even shows that stress reduces when we focus on controllables. Take inbox management strategies like the 3-email rule. They stem from this stoic efficiency: prioritize and execute. And regarding traffic, studies found that people who stay calm tend to be more alert drivers, making them safer on the road. There's a practical payoff to that stoic chill. It's not just philosophy, it's applied psychology.
Speaking of applied psychology, you know how they say don't sweat the small stuff? That's basically Stoicism light. Sure, people get all twisted up over minutia, but here's a kicker. Studies show that sweating the small stuff, like stressing over every email, actually shaves years off your life. Freaking out over traffic? Congrats, you just added more wrinkles. A Stoic kind of flips the script, keeps their cool, and bam, probably adds years to their life. Now that's some solid reasoning to maybe not toss your phone out the window when it pings at 3 a.m. Again.
Absolutely. Life isn't just about longevity, though. What's a long life without some quality to it? Embracing indifference shouldn't mean we ignore our emotions. It's crucial for mental health to acknowledge and process feelings, not just suppress them. The goal is peace, not emotional numbness. Being stoic means managing our reactions, not eliminating them. Stoicism teaches self-awareness and resilience, sure, but taken too far and we might forget to live passionately. We gotta strike that balance.
Wait, hold up, Joe. You're saying these Stoic folks actually don't want you to turn into some emotionless robot? So the deal is not about killing off your feels, it's learning to ride them like a pro surfer? That's pretty rad. Keeping it chilly on the things that bug you, but still living large when it comes to the good stuff. Like, yeah, we don't have to go full Vulcan mind meld to find peace. Sort of like plugging in earphones when the world gets noisy, but still cranking up the volume at a killer concert.
Yeah, Simon, you got it. It's about channeling emotions in the right direction. What do you think we can actively do to balance being cool with life's minor stresses and keeping our passion fired up for the important moments?
Hey Joe, channeling emotions is about that sweet spot, right? Maybe it starts with a checklist, things to geek out over on one side and stuff to shrug off on the other. Keeps you primed for action when it matters, but chill enough not to pop a fuse over every spilled latte. Let's keep chipping away at this. How about we dive deeper next time into what lands on each side of that list? Could be a game changer.
Actually, that strategy you mentioned, knowing what to amp up for and what to dial down, reminds me of some Stoic leadership back in the day. Take Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor and a Stoic philosopher. His reign is littered with instances where he exercised serious Stoic chill in face of adversity. Makes you think about historical leaders who were also part-time philosophers, right? I wonder how those ancient strategies fit into today's fast-paced, nuclear button world. Do you think modern leaders could benefit from a bit of that Stoic playbook?
Absolutely, they could. Marcus was scribbling self-help notes while running an empire. Talk about multitasking. His meditations are like ancient post-its on keeping it together. Stoicism taught him to be all just the facts amidst chaos. It's leadership gold. Imagine today's hotshots taking a page out of that. Economy crashing? Chill, let's think this through. No knee-jerk reactions causing Twitter meltdowns? Now that's a world I'd vote for. But hey, would instant zen undercut the urgency sometimes needed to solve today's crises? Could we end up with leaders too chillax to hit the red button when they actually need to? That's the real conundrum.
You bring up a compelling conundrum, Simon. Sure, Stoic leaders like Marcus Aurelius could reflect and not react rashly, valuable in our age of instant gratification. But what happens when action is key? Stoicism promotes virtue and duty over impulse. It's not about being inactive, but intentional. Yet the trick today is speed. We can't have leaders sitting on their hands. So marrying stoic wisdom with decisiveness, that's the sweet spot. A stoic leader today would need to cut through the noise without getting stifled by it. Is there a risk they'd be too detached? Possibly, but only if they forget that at the core of stoicism is also service and responsibility. What do you think?
Man, this makes me think of a buddy from my college days. He was running for student council president, no emperor gig, but cutthroat in its own right. The night before elections, some major dorm drama went down, rumors flying, sabotage. It was nuts. Picture this. My bud's campaign posters got trashed. Instead of blowing a fuse and plotting revenge, he goes full zen. He cleans up, keeps campaigning, even helps the rivals with their mess. Turns out he wins. Big time. Now, that's not ancient Rome, but it's something, right? People respected his cool under fire. Makes you wonder if today's leaders could pull off such a power move, winning wars with dignity over drama.
Reminds me of this one time when I was a team lead at my old job. We were under the gun to deliver this project. Tensions high, stakes higher, and out of nowhere, server crashes, work's gone, panic ensues. Now I'm thinking of your college buddy, how he handled that election mess. Drawing from that, I choose the stoic path, called for calm, rolled up sleeves, and coordinated a recovery plan instead of playing the blame game. Team followed suit. We not only recovered our work, but also found a flaw that made our final product even stronger. It wasn't student council drama or ancient Rome, but that measured response won us the day, and ultimately secured our team's trust and respect big time.
Ah, leading with the old chill pill philosophy. I mean, panic's like inviting a tornado to a tea party. Not much fun for anybody, Joe. I did the exact opposite once. Computer crashed after writing 5 pages of inspired thoughts, you know? Instead of going full-on Hulk smash, I just pretended I was in an 80s movie montage. Fixed that computer, rewrote everything, and added some jazz hands for flair. Sure, I cried a little bit on the inside, but hey, isn't that just internal hydration?
Internal hydration, huh? Ha! That's one way to frame it. Nice stoic spin. Your story's a classic twist on turning adversity into advantage. Look at leaders through history. They often had to mask their internal turmoil with a steely exterior for the greater good. Taking hardships and flipping them into opportunities, that's a trait we've seen in many influential figures throughout time, from emperors to generals. Those who mastered their emotions led with more clarity and foresight. Rewriting those 5 pages with jazz hands sounds like you tapped into your inner Marcus Aurelius there, pal. What a roller coaster ride, minus the 2,000 years, and sans the Rome backdrop, of course.
Inner Marcus Aurelius? Maybe if he wore neon leg warmers. Our so-called leaders could learn a thing or two from my computer fiasco. Call it the jazz hand technique. You trash one plan, I'll come up with something snazzier. But when you put it like that, turning bad jazz into smooth swing, it's kinda what these historical bigwigs did. They didn't have instant updates buzzing in their toga pockets, sure, but they stuck to their principles tighter than spandex. It's about mastering those nerves, steering the ship while the storm's trying to toss you overboard. Now imagine our leaders doing the same without sweating buckets on TV. That'd be a sight.
But hold on, not to throw cold water on the jazz hand technique, but there's something to be said for visible passion in leadership. Showing some fire can be reassuring. It communicates that a leader is human and emotionally invested in the issues at hand. Take Winston Churchill. His stirring speeches during World War II didn't just inform, they inspired. They showed he was right there in the thick of it with everyone else. Emotion isn't always the enemy. In fact, leaders who share in the public's anxieties, who show they feel the urgency of a crisis, can rally a nation or a company or team by translating that emotion into a call to action. Stoicism has its place, sure, but there's equally a time for a rallying cry, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely, Joe. There's no denying, sometimes you've just got to sound the horn and get the troops fired up. Historical big shots like Churchill knew when to turn up the volume. It wasn't all stiff upper lips and cucumber sandwiches. The stoic vibes are cool for contemplating your navel or avoiding a meltdown, but they won't always get you across that finish line. When push comes to shove, leaders gotta show some teeth, Make people believe they're in it together. Because who follows a leader without a pulse? A bit of fire, a touch of spirit, that's what lights up those history books.
Sometimes you just hit the nail on the head, Simon. Churchill's vigor in dire times is a fantastic example of balancing stoic reasoning with emotive leadership. Stoicism doesn't entail emotionless decision-making. It involves emotional intelligence, knowing when to keep your cool and when to express passion. It gives leaders the toolkit for reflective action versus reactive panic. They can acknowledge fear, yet not let it dictate their policy or define their legacy. And that's critical, because what really secures a place in history, it's someone who steers the ship through storms with calm but celebrates and motivates loudly in the sunshine. That dynamism is the difference between good and great leaders. Showing vulnerability isn't weakness, it's about connecting and gaining trust. And from trust springs loyalty and collective strength. Do you think our modern-day leaders have that balance down? Or are they leaning too hard on one side?
Modern-day leaders, huh? Good question. Most seem to have misplaced their stoic toolkit, or maybe they left it in their other suit. I think they're stumbling over which mask to wear, the chill or the thrill. Too frosty, and they're an AI in a tie. Too fiery, and it's a circus act without a tent. It's a tough gig finding that vibe Aristotle would high-five. Makes you wonder if there's a Stoicism 101 crash course for these folks. But hey, that balance. It's like catching smoke with a net, fleeting but dang impressive when you manage it. Who do you reckon is nailing it right now, Joe, or at least giving it a solid college try?
Finding that stoic balance is a bit like spotting someone at the gym trying to lift way more than they can handle. Grimacing 1 second, overconfident the next. It's pretty hilarious and leads me to something else. There's this idea floating around that Stoics are these unfeeling robots or monks living in caves away from society, and nothing could be further from the truth. Just picture this, Simon. Our character Tim, the modern misunderstood Stoic, walking into his buddy Bob's garage. Bob's all, "Tim, why so serious? You're like a robot, man." And Tim just sighs and goes, "Actually, Bob, it's about being pumped for life, not slamming the emotional off switch." Then while Bob's still chuckling and shaking his head, Tim perfectly lands a triple backflip off the lawnmower, because why not show life's zest with an action-packed somersault, right? I mean, if that doesn't scream "I love life," what does? But really, that's the catch. Stoics aren't cold-hearted Vulcans. They're more like Yoda, wise but also full of life and laughter. What do you think, Simon? Would Yoda make a good Stoic?
Yoda as a Stoic? Dude's basically the Jedi poster child for inner peace and outer cool. I mean, if he swapped the lightsaber for a toga, you've got your primetime Stoic sage right there. But here's the fun twist. Instead of lifting spaceships with his mind, picture him using sheer willpower not to eat the last cookie in the jar. Now that's some Stoic discipline.
All right, let's say Yoda is holding back on the cookies, a true display of Jedi Stoic discipline. But that doesn't mean he doesn't desire the cookie. It's about choosing what to do with that desire. And this brings us to another great misconception. People think Stoics don't care about anything, that they just shrug off their desires and passions like some sort of Zen monk. Let's roll with our buddy Tim again. After his awe-inspiring backflip, he's now eyeing that last chocolate chip treasure. Bob teases him, "Bet you Stoic dudes don't even like cookies, huh? Too much joy in one bite?" And Tim winks, taking a deliberate step back from the cookie jar and says, "It's not that we don't enjoy the cookie, my friend. It's that we enjoy mastery over our cravings more." But here's the kicker. As soon as Bob leaves the room, Tim might, or might not, snag that last cookie, savoring it twice as much because it was a choice, not an impulse. And that's Stoicism with a dash of humor. It's not about suppressing joy or desire. It's about not letting those things yank your chain. Stoics can party. They just don't need the party. You seeing the clarity through the comedy there, Simon?
Bob's definitely got it twisted. Stoics party, but they're the ones sipping water, enjoying the chaos, like designated drivers for life. They know when to jump in the pool with their clothes on. They just check their pockets first.
Exactly. It's all about being in control of the ride, not just letting go of the wheel. Stoics are mindful partiers, deliberate about their fun. They're like, I'll party on my terms. But let's drive this home. A big misconception is that Stoicism means having no fun or withdrawing from society's pleasures. Like someone saying, Stoics probably hate surprise parties because they can't control them. But imagine Tim getting surprised, and instead of freaking out or yawning, he just grins wide and says, the only true surprise is if I didn't expect something unexpected today. That's Stoicism with a wink, welcoming life's surprises, but staying cool when life suddenly yells, surprise! It's about finding joy in the unplanned without losing your head or your phone in the pool. Stoics are down to earth, not emotionless, not uncaring, just super good at navigating life's dance floor without stepping on too many toes. What's more grounded than that?
Let's flip the script. Tim throws his own surprise party. Imagine everyone's faces when they walk in, and he's alone with balloons, casually saying, just practicing gratitude and letting go of expectations. Plus, I made cake. Now that's a plot twist.
So if Tim here is hosting his own surprise party and whipping up desserts by himself, what do you think he's really celebrating? Is it the art of flipping expectations on their head, or just a clever excuse to have cake?
Wait, a dude rocking his own surprise party? Now that's gold. Tim's there making cake for a crowd of one. Talk about a self-serving party. He's definitely showing us Stoics aren't just stone-faced philosophers meditating on a rock. They're the life of the party, even if they're the only ones on the guest list. Cheers to Tim, the enlightened party animal.
Self-serving or not, there's a fine line between self-sufficiency and plain old talking to yourself at a party. But let's get real. The idea that Stoics are these solo act party hosts has got to crack you up, Simon. Stoicism isn't about shunning social interaction, but embracing it with the right mindset. So how about this? If Tim invites friends over next time and they don't show, he doesn't sulk. He says, more cake for me, then donates the leftovers to the neighbors. That twist isn't just funny, it's deep. Stoics pivot and adapt without missing a beat. Allocator.
Oh, Tim's solo fiesta hits right at home. It's about that pivot. No guests, no problem. Share the cake and spread the good vibes. Stoicism isn't loneliness. It's choosing to be your best company and then sharing that joy. You've got to admit, there's something hilarious about flipping expectations like a perfectly tossed pancake. What's the next Stoic stereotype we're busting with a laugh, Joe?
Talking about Tim's surprising approach to life, it actually ties into something I've been thinking about lately, AI and machines. So let's say technology progresses to where robots are trying to mimic human ideology, like Stoicism. Can you imagine programming a form of Stoic reasoning into AI? It opens up this can of bolts about the value in teaching machines to detach feelings from decisions. But isn't part of Stoicism acknowledging emotions rather than just ignoring them? This could really shake up our future interactions with robots. What's your take, Simon? Should we be aiming to create a bunch of Zen bots walking around?
Stoicism's about knowing your feelings, not ditching them. Programming a bot to know emotions? Tall order. Trying to cram all that complexity into code could end up more iRobot than wise guru. And think about those glitches. Today my phone can't even autocorrect right. Tomorrow it tries to give life advice. Yikes. Could be useful, though, if it keeps cool under pressure, like an unflappable GPS calmly rerouting amidst utter chaos. Turn left at existential dread. If tech learns any part of Stoicism, fingers crossed it's the chill, not the robot uprising vibe.
Turn left at existential dread. Now that's a GPS feature I'd pay extra for. But let's hammer this down. If we've got Stoic AI, whose philosophy are they following? Marcus Aurelius? Imagine your coffee maker dispenses wisdom with your morning brew, or your fridge judges your snack choices. The real kicker is, machines don't have feelings, not yet anyway. Stoicism without actual emotions is like teaching your toaster to avoid carbs. It lacks context. Does an unflappable robot need stoicism, or does it inherently live it by default? Stoicism reminds us to accept what we can't change. But here's the catch. Would an AI understand acceptance, or just execute programmed indifference? There's a nuance in knowing your emotions and choosing rational responses that might always be beyond AI's grasp. Our human squabbles seem less complicated next to these future tech dilemmas, huh? What sort of feelings should we even aim to emulate in these machines, Simon? Or are we crossing wires even thinking about it?
Funny story, Joe. Reminds me of my old car. This beat-up thing with an engine that interpreted stop as a gentle suggestion. I swear that rust bucket had more zen than a monk, because no matter how much I yelled or pleaded, it just did its thing, unbothered. But this one time, on a steep hill, that car decided to give up. The ultimate act of mechanical stoicism. Me? Panicked. The car? As serene as a pond. Right then, I learned about acceptance big time. Felt like the universe chuckled and said, "That's stoicism, buddy. Just my luck to get schooled by a piece of metal." If we ever manage to sprout emotions into software, maybe they'll surprise us like my old clunker, forced calm in the face of screaming drivers.
Man, that's both hilarious and terrifying. The last thing you want is your car deciding it's a good moment to embrace nonchalance on a steep hill. But I've got to say, Simon, there's something strangely poetic about your old car teaching you about stoicism in the most hands-on or wheels-off way possible. It's one of those unexpected life lessons, kind of like how we all learn something profound when we least expect it. Pushing through the panic and finding that zen, that's real. Honestly, stories like these hit home. They show that sometimes the best teachers of life aren't even trying. So if AI ever starts slinging genuine life lessons and fostering epiphanies without just spouting pre-coded wisdom, then maybe we'll truly see the value of merging stoicism with silicon. Until then, we'll stick to drawing insight from rusty engines and surprise parties for one.
Imagine a future where your toaster pops out existential questions along with your bread. Is today the day you finally start that novel, Dave? Gives a whole new meaning to food for thought, doesn't it?
Food for thought with a side of toast, that'd make breakfast the most reflective meal of the day. But let's not sugarcoat it. There's something off about getting life prompts from kitchen appliances. We have to ask, do we even want our gadgets meddling in our personal growth? Sure, your toaster could remind you of that novel you've been neglecting, but what if you're absolutely swamped with work? You might end up throwing that toaster out the window. The crux of the matter is relevance and context. Machines lack the organic touch. A human can sense when you're stressed or pumped and tailor their words accordingly. Machines? Not so much. They'd probably toss stoic one-liners at you whether you're ready to write that novel or just trying to get through your morning routine. Could be more annoying than inspiring. Plus, what if the AI gets it wrong? Instead of cool-headed stoics, we get neurotic machines pestering us about unfinished tasks. Not exactly the stoic peace you'd hope for.
Totally, Joe. It's a slippery slope from helpful reminders to feeling hounded by our own homes. What I'd give for tech that knows just when to dish out wisdom versus when to keep quiet. The line between help and hassle is paper thin. In wrapping up, will machines ever really get stoic thought? My money's on not quite. Let's be honest, if my phone can't even learn not to autocorrect hey into hey, it's got a long way to go before mastering the subtleties of Epictetus or Seneca. But hey, it sure makes you wonder what's next in this tech meets philosophy rodeo, doesn't it?
It's a balancing act, isn't it? Like how leaders have to navigate between being directive and understanding. Speaking of leadership, that actually brings us right around to another thought-provoking angle. Empathy in the driver's seat during tough times. In a crisis, leaders often turn to emotional intelligence, or EQ, which can be more crucial than their IQ. It's all about managing the storm from within and guiding others through it too. But here's where it gets tricky. There's a thin line between empathy and sympathy in those roles. Sympathy might send the feels bad for you message, while empathy actually involves feeling with people, which can change outcomes dramatically. When you think back, we've seen some outstanding decisions throughout history shaped by genuine empathy. Leaders who've stood in the trenches, so to speak, understood the essence of their team's struggles and reinforced their actions with compassion, even when everything around was high stress and high pressure. Crafting an environment like that is art. It builds trust and loyalty when every second counts. What do you reckon, Simon? How heavy does empathy weigh on the scales of effective leadership for you?
Empathy weighs a ton, Joe. It's like having an emotional Swiss Army knife in a leader's toolkit. Without it, decisions would be as blunt as using a hammer for brain surgery.
Hey man, that's actually a spot-on way to put it. Being all hammer and no finesse, that's how you lose people and make a mess of things. It's like martial arts. You can be tough as nails, but if you don't understand the flow or feel your opponent's next move, you're going to get tapped out. Empathy in a leader works the same way. It's realizing what's going on with your team and adjusting before things go south. It's getting in there, being present, not just ruling from some distant office.
But let's play devil's advocate. Too much empathy could lead to indecisiveness, couldn't it? Leaders caught up in feeling everyone's woes might start missing the forest for the trees. I'm all for understanding your team, but there's a line, right? Flip side, you don't want a robot in charge either. It's the Goldilocks dilemma of leadership. Just gotta find that sweet spot.
Absolutely, Simon. Overdo the empathy and risk paralysis by analysis, too involved in personal stories to make the tough calls. It's essential for leaders to carry a bit of that stoic perspective we touched on before, being aware of emotions without getting overwhelmed by them. The sweet spot lies in empathetic detachment, caring deeply, yet making unbiased decisions. Think about crisis management. A leader with high EQ can read the room, de-escalate panic, and still take decisive action, all while maintaining morale because the team feels heard and considered. The real test of leadership isn't just steering the ship away from the iceberg, but doing it with the crew willing to follow you through the fog and ice.
So, Joe, how would you go about teaching leaders to strike that balance between empathy and action? Is there a particular approach you think works best to hit that empathetic sweet spot without tipping over into analysis paralysis?
Hey, for those of you just joining in, we've been dissecting a real meaty topic: the crucial dance between empathy and decisiveness in leadership. We chewed over how emotional intelligence isn't just the cherry on top, it's the whole sundae when managing crises. We've all seen leaders both take charge and deeply connect with their team's needs. The trick is not drowning in emotions or going cold robot mode. To teach that balance, I'd say it comes down to practice, self-awareness, and feedback. Role-play scenarios can work wonders. You're forged by fire in simulation, so you're calm in the actual blaze. Leaders need that rehearsal time to find their groove. It's about giving enough of a darn without letting it handcuff your decision-making ability. And look, none of this is just pie-in-the-sky talk. Striking the right level of empathy absolutely amps up a team's trust, loyalty, and performance under pressure. Simon, what are some instances where you've seen this equilibrium play out well or crash and burn?
Joe, regarding finding that equilibrium in leaders, it's like watching someone ride a unicycle for the first time. You get those who overcompensate and zigzag all over the place before they learn to steer straight. But you also have smooth operators who just naturally find their center of gravity. Let me poke at your practice and feedback strategy, though. It's sound, but theory is one thing. Real crisis, another beast entirely. In the heat of the moment, can rehearsed empathy really shine through, or does instinct take over? There are some humdingers in history where this has happened. Great example or spectacular failure. Main point: nothing beats authentic connection. If leaders don't genuinely care, it's as obvious as a skunk at a garden party, no matter how much they've practiced.
You know, Simon, your unicycle analogy just sparked a memory. Back when I was cutting my teeth in project management, we had this one leader, let's call him Tom. The guy oozed charisma. You'd swear he could sell ice to penguins. But here's the kicker. The first real crisis hit, and man, it was like Tom bought his leadership manual from a discount bin. Textbook stuff, but no heart. Then one day during a major client fallout, instead of robot mode, Tom surprised us all. He got real. Shared stories about his own missteps, listened like our words were gospel, and acted not just decisively, but with visible care. He wasn't a natural at the empathy gig, but when push came to shove, that authentic connection you mentioned was what kept the ship steady. He learned on the fly that empathy isn't an act. It's rolling up your sleeves and showing you're in the trenches together. It was a lesson in genuine leadership for me, a reminder that even if instinct kicks in, it's your heart that ultimately steers the course.
You just nailed it, Joe. And isn't it wild how often those turning point moments are unplanned? Sometimes leaders find their best selves in the messiest situations, like digging up a diamond in your backyard while planting potatoes.
Man, Simon, isn't that the truth? It's all about those raw moments when leaders get real and find out what they're actually made of. Kind of like fighters getting choked out in the ring. You never know who's got that fighting spirit until they're put to the test. Leaders find their true north in chaos. It's a grind. But hey, diamonds are just chunks of carbon that handled stress exceptionally well, right?
Absolutely, Joe. Leaders are just like us, facing the music when the lights go out. It's those chokehold moments that can transform a good leader into a great one. Makes you wonder how many potential diamonds are out there, waiting for their moment in the rough, don't you think?
Speaking of diamonds in the rough, Simon, this reminds me. Our ability to balance reason with raw human emotion. It's like a seesaw. Lean too heavy on emotion and our perspective tilts, getting all murky with biases. Yet, if we go full Vulcan, over-relying on cold, hard logic, we risk becoming disconnected automatons. Emotional intelligence says, hey, keep your feet grounded in rational thought, but don't lose that heartbeat. It's quite the philosophical gymnasium, flexing both brain and soul muscles for problem solving. This bandwidth between Spock and Captain Kirk might just be where real-world solutions are found. But sometimes I wonder, can you have too much EQ in a crisis? Can it cloud your judgment as much as any other bias?
So this EQ tightrope we're walking, do you think there's a point where too much emotional intelligence actually tips us into trouble rather than keeping us level-headed? Where's that line between being in tune with emotions and being swayed by them?
Absolutely, Simon. There's such a thing as too much of a good deal, isn't it? Too high EQ can be like an overseasoned dish. The flavors overwhelm rather than complement. If you're so in tune with emotions that you start absorbing everyone else's stress and fears, suddenly you're not the anchor anymore. You're getting swept away with them. You need that line where your emotional radar says, I get it, I feel it, but I won't let it pilot the ship. It's crucial to remember that while emotions are data, they're not directives. When you hit that sweet spot, acknowledging emotions without letting them lead, it's gold. It takes heaps of discipline, though. What do you reckon that discipline looks like in practice, Simon?
Discipline in balancing EQ and rational thought is like surfing. You acknowledge the wave, that's your emotion, noticing its size and power, but you don't let it flip you over. You ride it, using technique, that's our rational mind, to stay up and navigate. It translates to taking a beat before responding, even in high-stress situations, reading the emotional currents, but keeping your gaze on the horizon. Now, Joe, consider training that muscle memory. How do we keep from wiping out emotionally when the big waves hit?
Hey, new listeners. You're surfing the airwaves seamlessly into a juicy chat about juggling EQ with reason, riding the emotional waves without getting pummeled by them. We've been slicing and dicing through the thick stew of reasoning and feeling like a hot knife through butter. Imagine emotions as waves and your rational mind as a surfboard. You respect the wave, but use your board to stay upright. Simon just tossed up a killer question. How do we train to keep our balance when emotional tsunamis strike? It's all about honing that muscle memory so that you don't wipe out when the stakes are high. Now, don't drop in too late. Let's dive deeper.
Absolutely, Joe. Before we get dunked by the next tidal wave of chat, let's paddle back to that crucial bit about muscle memory. How exactly do leaders prime themselves to navigate these towering waves of crisis without getting sucked into the emotional undertow?
Great point about not getting sucked under, Simon. It reminds me of those regular stress tests banks do. How can leaders simulate their own stress tests in calmer waters so they're ready when the real storms hit?
Stress tests, huh? That's one heck of an idea. Why not put those future leaders through the hoops before the actual circus arrives in town? It's like fire drills for your brain. Rinse and repeat until the routine embeds itself deep in your muscle memory, so when real emotional flames are licking at your heels, you're not just winging it. You've got your emotional fire extinguisher at the ready because you've practiced without getting burnt edge to edge.
That's spot on, Simon. The principle is the same across the board. You don't wait for a Category 5 hurricane to check if your roof's got leaks. Leaders should undergo routine emotional drills to build that resilience and reactionary finesse. Critiques without crumbling, decisions under duress, handling conflict without conflagration. It's strengthening that EQ and rational thought synergy until it's almost reflexive. To add more meat to this, leaders must consistently practice self-reflection post-drill too. Assessing what emotions surfaced, why, how they managed them, really dissecting the play-by-play after the scrimmage. It's as vital as the drill itself. This kind of introspection could well be the secret sauce for leaders riding those high emotional waves right into shore, instead of thrashing around in the surf.
Dissecting scrimmage play-by-plays, you said it. It's like checking your rearview mirror after dodging potholes. Did you swerve effectively or almost hit a lamppost? That's how you nail the next high-speed emotional obstacle course.
Simon, this whole scenario reminds me of that cross-country road trip I took. Now hear me out. Miles of open highway, just me and my thoughts. Driving required focus, but it also gave way to plenty of introspection, kind of similar to our leaders doing their EQ stress tests. Halfway through Nevada, the heat kicks in, AC's busted, emotions start to simmer. A tire goes, I'm on the shoulder, sun beating down like an unforgiving metronome. Now old me would have kicked the car. But I'd been here before, metaphorically. Took a breath, remembered past mishaps, dealt with it logically, and even chuckled thinking about how this would be a great story for the podcast. It was practicing patience and calm during small setbacks, so when life throws bigger curveballs, you're batting 1,000, just like those emotional fire drills we discussed.
Right, so you're cruising along life's highway, AC hits the skids, and your tire decides to bail. Classic. Now that's a test. But here's the twist. Not every leader has your cool composure or sense of humor to laugh it off or turn a mishap into podcast gold. Some might just lose their marbles right there on the hot tarmac. It begs the question, are we maybe too quick to label those blow-ups as failures instead of part of the learning curve? Here's where I throw a wrench in our engine. Could we actually benefit from occasionally letting emotions take the wheel? Hear me out. Sometimes your best lessons are learned when things go south. Maybe leaders need to embrace the chaos, not just manage it. Could it be possible that we sometimes learn more from our emotional unravelings than from staying buttoned up all the time?
You're not wrong, Simon. We've been trained to toss mistakes in the failure bin without realizing they're often our richest source of growth. So sure, controlled unravelings could be necessary for progress. You come apart a bit, but you stitch yourself back together smarter. It's through these very meltdowns that some find their defining moments. Is a full emotional tilt always bad if it leads to greater wisdom? That's one for the books, or for our next podcast deep dive. Can managing a crisis sometimes mean embracing it head first? Let's ponder that as we roll on to the next topic.
So, flipping the script on stress relief, Joe. Ever notice how a burst of laughter can turn a pressure cooker situation into a balloon animal party?
Definitely, Simon. Reminds me of this one time during a live podcast recording, remember? Our audio mixer glitches out, we're broadcasting dead air, and I'm sweating bullets. Instead of panicking, you start telling listeners about your days as an amateur mime trapped in a box, something totally absurd. Instead of erupting in frustration, the room is bursting with laughter. It broke the tension instantly. We kept our cool, solved the glitch, and that story even became a running joke with our audience. Laughter didn't undermine the severity, it gave us breathing room to think clearly. And honestly, for listeners, hearing us chuckle probably made us more relatable, like we're all in this glitchy podcast life together, riding the wave with a smile.
Laughter as a strategy, eh? But come on, Joe, let's not get it twisted. I see you trying to romanticize our flubs. Sure, we laughed and the listeners got a kick, but imagine those high rollers in corporate sweatboxes. They drop one number from a report and it's game over. No clown nose is going to inflate that deflated boardroom. Still, there's this magic moment when humor slices through the gloom like a cheese string. Take the pros who spend their days diffusing bombs of different sorts, for real or figuratively. A quick, cheeky one-liner can be the difference between freezing up and finding your focus. It's a tricky tightrope, a misplaced joke and you're the court jester. But nail that punchline at just the right tension point, and boom, you've got the whole squad in stitches, ready to tackle the next grenade with a grin. Should we be training teams to crack the code on comedy timing alongside their KPIs? Could revolutionize stress management. That?
Whoa, Simon, that's pure gold, man. Imagine throwing a stand-up comedy routine into the mix at those stiff-collared board meetings. So, folks, what's the deal with synergy? It's like dating in your 30s. Everyone talks about it, no one knows what's really going on, but we're all sure we need more of it. But seriously, the power of a well-timed joke is massively underrated. If bomb squads can chuckle in the face of danger, surely Debbie from accounting can crack a smile over Excel sheets. Humor disarms us. It's a universal translator for everybody chill. Training teams to wield humor could be as important as any fire drill. After all, if you can laugh in the face of chaos, you probably can handle just about anything. Communal laughter might just be the unsung hero in stress relief spells. A shared chuckle might save the day. Now there's an EVP, employee value punchline.
Imagine if companies replaced coffee breaks with comedy breaks. You laughs, spills your coffee, productivity, and spilled drinks go through the roof.
Ha, comedy breaks, coffee everywhere, keyboards ruined. But for sure, that laughter is key. Look at any high-stress podcast, fight camp, or intense project. The moment someone cracks wise and everyone loosens up, that's a win. It's not about distracting from the mission. It's levity for longevity, man.
Levity for longevity. I like that. But let's jab at it a bit more. Could too much joking around backfire? Picture this. You're chuckling it up, then bam. Missed a deadline because you were busy perfecting your one-liner about TPS reports. The balance is a beast, right? Laughs are great, but skip too far down comedy lane and you might just trip over the serious stuff lurking in the alley. Gotta ask, where's that line? When does cracking smiles turn into just cracking under pressure? I'm all for a guffaw or two, but let's not forget, those stakes are high for a reason. Sometimes, instead of yuck yuck, we need more buckle up.
Absolutely, Simon. Humor's a tool, not the whole toolbox. You've got to know when to deliver a joke and when to dive into the grind. It's like being a pilot. You can crack a joke over the intercom, but nobody wants to hear slapstick while navigating turbulence. Timing is everything. Jokes can't eat into crunch time. They're there to make that time more bearable. It's about throwing out a one-liner that cuts through tension, not cutting so much you sever focus. The line? It's right at that sweet spot where everybody's chuckling but still charting the course on the task at hand.
All right, finding that sweet spot, huh? It's a skill, weaving humor into the high-stakes fabric without it unraveling. Chuckles can't overstay their welcome in crunch time. We'll have to leave this for our listeners to marinate on. When has a timed joke saved your bacon at work? Keep laughing and keep working, but remember, folks, timing is key.
Speaking of timing, it's crucial even after the dust settles. Take post-crisis times. Once the laughter fades and the adrenaline drops off, we're left with some pretty hefty reflections, right? Whether at home or in the boardroom, these are the moments that sculpt us. Families and organizations often find themselves at a crossroads after a crisis, like they've just walked out of an action film and need to process it all. How also do folks reassess not just what went down, but who they are because of it? Simon, this reflection zone is ripe for personal growth.
So Joe, my cousin's wedding, big affair, right? And in typical fashion, it all goes sideways when a surprise summer storm crashes the party. Tents gone airborne, cake's a disaster scene, all before I do. Afterward, in the wreckage, we just stood there stunned. But you know what? While picking up the pieces, literally, something clicked. Everyone was chatting, laughing about the insanity of it all. Uncle Mike remarked how that storm cleared the air, made everyone focus on what mattered. Not napkin colors or playlists, but family, being together through thick and thin. That wild weather taught us more than any sunny day could. After surviving disaster, looking back, everyone's priorities had shifted, weathering that storm together, kind of like those heavy-hitter moments in business, where everything collapses only to reveal the real foundation beneath it all. a spectacular mess that paves the way for sturdier rebuilds and closer connections.
It's like chaos is the world's most honest mirror, Simon. Thrashing winds and a ruined cake stripped away the fluff, revealing the core, relationships, resilience, a good story for later. In both family feuds and office meltdowns, it's not the disaster that defines us, but how we regroup and what we learn afterwards that truly shapes our path forward.
True that, Joe. When the storm hits and the dust settles, what's your take then? I mean, how often do you think people actually use those messy blowouts to focus on the real deal, reshaping not just their priorities, but also how they bounce back next time around?
Not as often as they should, Simon. Post-crisis reflection is crucial. Studies suggest that after upheaval, those who engage in structured reflection tend to experience more personal and professional growth. It's about turning adversity into insight. For instance, Harvard Business Review points out how leaders who reflect can improve their decision-making skills by 22% and productivity by 25%. And it's not just about the individual. Organizations are leaning on post-crisis analysis to strengthen team resilience. NASA, after critical missions, conducts rigorous debriefs, not just on what went wrong, but also on psychological impacts, team dynamics, and leadership effectiveness. Adapting this approach in family or work settings means recognizing emotional turbulence and deliberately forging stronger bonds from it. Emotional intelligence, EQ, grows when we ask not only what happened, but how have we changed for the better. It turns a messy blowout into a masterclass in resilience. Practical steps include journaling, open discussions without blame, and setting new strategies in place based on hard-learned lessons. This way, when the next storm hits, it's met with a stronger, wiser, and more united front.
Certainly, Joe. Reflecting post-crisis isn't just feel-good fluff. It's ingrained in some seriously successful practices. Take after-action reviews, used by the U.S. Army, or critical incident stress debriefings, CISD, in emergency services. Both are structured reflection methods designed to maximize lessons learned from intense experiences. These debriefs push individuals and teams to dissect events and emotions to uncover what went right, what flopped, and how to improve. They're not blame games. They're collective brainstorms encouraging growth and cohesiveness. In business, companies like Google apply their own versions, with Project Aristotle revealing that psychological safety is pivotal for team success. When teammates feel safe to reflect on failures without fear of ridicule, innovation blooms. Family-wise, check studies by the Family Narratives Lab, which emphasize the power of storytelling in resilience building. Families that craft coherent narratives about hardships tend to navigate future challenges more successfully. All these are backed by research suggesting that people who engage in such reflective practices not only bounce back faster, but climb higher after the fall. It's a merging of emotional intelligence development with strategic planning, where past hiccups inform future triumphs.
Thought-provoking stuff. Now I'm hankering to throw in a wild card. Imagine if families ran AARs like the military, or corporations had family-style story sessions. Might just bridge some gaps and bring out those hidden lessons that we usually overlook.
Right? Picture Dad whipping out a flip chart at dinner. So, disaster struck when the dog ate the roast. Thoughts on our response team's effectiveness? Chaos as a teaching moment.
Ha, exactly. Family debriefs could change the game. After every mishap, if we take a beat to reflect, we might just find ourselves learning life's curriculum in the most unconventional classroom. So listeners, think about the last quake in your world. What did the post-crisis reflection teach you?
Speaking of handling the aftermath of a crisis and learning from it, it got me thinking about how we actually handle those conflicts in the moment. Like, what if instead of us messing up with emotions running high, we had, let's say, a robot step in to mediate? Sounds wild, but nowadays, AI's breaking into the mediation game, mission-critical jobs.
A robot mediator? Sure, it's a nifty idea if we're talking about splitting the dinner bill. But in real-deal human conflicts where nuance and empathy carry the weight, I'm skeptical. An AI can crunch data and spit out the fairest compromise, but can it read the room or catch those subtle emotional cues that a seasoned human mediator brings to the table? Know what I mean? Sometimes neutrality isn't just about being impartial. It's about understanding the people behind the problem. Can a robo-mediator really discern context like humans do, or will it just boil everything down to cold, hard logic?
Yeah, I hear you, Joe. But here's a scoop for you. There's actual progress in AI that tries to grasp human emotions. Not perfect, mind you, but it's headway. We've got algorithms now that analyze speech patterns, facial expressions, even body language to gauge emotions. It's not just about logic, they're inching towards the empathy bit too. Now, I'm thinking back to this case where AI was used in small claims court to settle disputes, kind of like Judge Judy, but without any eye rolls or sass. And it worked. Folks walked away feeling heard because the AI stuck to just facts, no favoritism. Imagine cutting down on long waits and legal fees with robo-mediators. They're never tired, never grumpy, no need for coffee breaks. I'm not saying we boot out the human touch, but blend it. Have tech tackle the grunt work so human mediators can bring their A game to the nuanced stuff. Could be the future of fair play if we keep the tech reined in, right?
A Judge Judy bot. Now that's a primetime slot waiting to happen, but emotion detecting tech still has miles to go. Take it from courtrooms where the stakes are high, nuances matter just as much as the hard facts. A wrong read on emotion, a missed social cue by AI could mean the difference between resolution and resentment. Sure, the efficiency is tempting. I'm all for cutting down wait times and costs, but we're skating on thin ice if we think AI can replace human judgment in complex personal disputes. What happens when the algorithm misfires or gets manipulated? And let's not even start on biases in AI. We've seen it in facial recognition. Same risks apply here. Until AI can demonstrate genuine empathy and unbiased decision-making, I'd say keep robots as aids, not arbiters. Humans still need to be at the heart of human conflict. The day a robot can sit at Thanksgiving dinner and smoothly navigate family politics, then we'll talk upgrade.
What if we had robo-mediators for relationship squabbles, though? Alexa, tell her she's overreacting about me forgetting the milk again. Would save a night on the couch.
Funny you mention that. Reminds me of a buddy of mine, tech whiz, real sharp. He creates this custom app for him and his partner, right? It's supposed to streamline their decision-making process. From picking dinner spots to managing finances, the app was their pocket mediator. Here's where it gets rich. He bakes in humor, programmed with inside jokes, favorite quotes, stuff like that. A playful nudge from their digital middleman whenever things got too heated. And believe it or not, it actually eased the tension more times than not. But here's the kicker. Despite the neutral ground the app provided, it couldn't replace the real talks, the ones digging deep into why that forgotten milk touched a nerve. The app had data, but no depth. So while my friend might have avoided some couch time thanks to his tech-savvy peacekeeping, it reinforced one thing. When it comes to the heart of the matter, human emotional intelligence is still irreplaceable. Tech-assisted, yes, but not tech-replaced.
Yeah, your buddy's app story hits the nail on the head. It's like, sure, a robo-mediator could throw out some logic and funnies to cut through the tension, but at the end of the day, it's missing that human oomph, the gut-level understanding of what's really going down. It's sort of like getting served a veggie burger at a barbecue. Decent, but everyone knows it's not the real deal. Technology is wicked cool for easing into decisions or calming minor spats with humor and distraction. But when you're knee-deep in feelings, an algorithm doesn't stand a chance. Real talk requires vulnerability, empathy, and sometimes just a good old human hug. Until AI can genuinely offer that, it's more like putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. A bit about how pros might handle the same kind of paint. 우리 비즈니스가 나아갈 방향에 대해 논의하는 겁니다.
Gotta say, Simon, the thought of AI handling domestic spats is a fresh one for me. A digital referee when tempers flare over whose turn it is to do the dishes? Can't say I'd seen that coming. And if these algorithms can actually tap into how we're feeling, beyond just being pre-programmed with a couple's quirks, that's another level. Still, it seems there's an ocean between where AI is and the complexities of human emotion. An algorithm calm a heated argument? Perhaps. Offer comfort or understand personal history behind the anger? Now that's a steep hill to climb. Tech might keep things cool momentarily, But humans need more than correct answers. We need empathy, context, and real understanding. For now, I'll take my relationship advice without the batteries included.
I just had a wild thought. What if during an argument, the AI suddenly says, "You're both wrong," and flips the script? Now that'd be a curveball.
Imagine this. You're squaring off against your best mate in a game of chess. Tensions mount, each move more critical than the last. You're both certain you've got the edge, and neither willing to give an inch. Suddenly, some genius onlooker, a wisecracking AI with a knack for chess, interrupts to point out flaws in both your strategies. At first, you're taken aback, maybe even a bit put out by this unsolicited knight in digital armor. But then, as it elaborates, explaining moves and countermoves you hadn't considered, the focus shifts from one-upping each other to learning and reaching a better understanding of the game. It dispels the tension by challenging both perspectives equally, not taking sides, just laying down hard truths with uncanny neutrality. This technological interlude didn't choose a winner, but elevated the gameplay, turning rivalry into collaboration. That's when the light bulb moment strikes. Maybe AI can teach us a thing or two about looking past our own viewpoints to find common ground, even outside the chessboard.
Absolutely, Joe. Imagine the possibilities if we can get both sides to geek out over AI input instead of locking horns. Could it be that our chess-playing digital pal not only diffuses the standoff, but actually gets us thinking as a unit? Now, what might that mean for real-world disagreements? Are we looking at future peace thanks to some cold calculating circuitry with heart? Let's ponder on that.
Our chess analogy with AI as the neutral advisor, it really teases the mind about how these systems could play larger roles in our everyday lives. There's this concept I've been diving into lately, and is perfect for now: algorithmic altruism. It's this idea of programming machines to not just mimic human understanding, but relay it through genuine acts of kindness. We're already towing that line, teaching AIs about our emotions, our ethics, even our prejudices. The question lingering in the Silicon Air is, can a machine truly grasp the zigzagging maze of humanity enough to act selflessly? When we start expecting algorithms to walk and talk emotional support, are we forgetting what makes us inherently human? How does coded empathy measure up against human instinct and connection? I'm guessing there's no easy answer, but it's something worth wrestling with. What say you, listeners? Does teachable tech empathy sound like utopia or uncharted waters?
Teachable tech empathy, huh? Sure, programming a machine to play nice sounds great, but here's my hot take. Can coding compassion into an AI ever really stack up against the real McCoy? There's something about the human touch, that gut feeling when you know someone's got your back because they've been there. Life's messy. People aren't algorithms. Like when I'm having a rough day, a machine might know to play my favorite song or dim the lights, thanks to some fancy algorithmic intuition. But can it sit with you, get why you're down, share in that moment? That's not just deep waters, Joe. That's like diving headfirst into an abyss without knowing what's swimming down there. Algorithmic altruism might sound noble, but let's be real, it's got nothing on a hug, mate.
We're dancing around it, but let's cut to the chase. This abyss, as you put it, might just be where we find the future of humanity. We forge ahead into a world where machines teach us about empathy rather than strip it away. Or maybe they reflect back our own biases so blatantly that we're forced to face them head on. Either way, isn't the real fascination how we navigate this new blend of artificial intelligence and raw human emotion?
Absolutely. The crux of algorithmic altruism boils down to an AI's understanding of human quirks and imperfections. We're not just talking about basic kindness or robot hugs. We're looking at computers getting the rough edges and soft centers of people. This whole journey is a tightrope walk over figuring out how much humanity we can inject into ones and zeros. And let's get real. If these machines start mirroring our messy emotions and biases, that's like holding up a giant mirror to society. Could be enlightening, sure, but also a bit of a scare when you see your own face looking back at you from the screen. It's going to change the game in everything: ethics, law, daily life. Heck, it's like teaching manners to a toaster. Will it burn the toast less often? Dunno, but I'm here for this ride.
So Simon, With our toaster potentially learning not to char the bread thanks to algorithmic altruism, do you think we're approaching a point where machines could genuinely nudge us toward being better humans? Or is this just adding a high-tech mirror to reflect on our own flaws and virtues?
Let me paint you a picture. You're sitting there, scrolling through your phone, and your smart fridge chimes in. Hey buddy, maybe lay off the ice cream tonight? I mean, is it looking out for my health or just trying to save itself from another midnight raid? Next thing you know, my coffee maker's giving me pep talks. Brew can do it. It's like my kitchen's become the set of an inspirational sitcom. If this is AI nudging us to be better, I'm gonna need machines with a bit more chill and a lot fewer life tips.
Consider this, though. A smart fridge nudging you away from the ice cream is a playful example of what's at the heart of algorithmic altruism: positive reinforcement. It's not about machines bossing us around. It's about data-driven support for healthier choices. Here's why that matters. Studies in behavioral science suggest that subtle prompts can significantly influence our decision-making. So, if our devices nudge us consistently towards better habits, rooted in real-world data on health outcomes, the cumulative effect on public health could be huge. Sure, it might feel like overreach at times, but isn't the goal to live healthier, happier lives? If algorithmic intuition can guide us there, even just by aiming our late-night cravings from ice cream to yogurt, that's a win in my book. And let's face it, who doesn't need a gentle push now and then?
Joe, that push towards yogurt over ice cream might just be the start. Imagine the broader implications. Your tech not only guides you through a diet, but also picks up patterns in mood to suggest when you should call an old friend or get some fresh air. It's like having a life coach in your pocket, but instead of rah-rah speeches, it deals in hard data and quiet nudges. Now, don't get me wrong, this is all super sci-fi right now. We still need to iron out privacy concerns and ethical boundaries big time. But if we hone it right, could algorithmic altruism mean fewer heartaches and healthier minds? Darn right, it could. It's all about balance and remembering who's boss. Live smarter, not just more controlled. The real juice here is using tech to enhance humanity, not override it.
Exactly, Simon. Finding that balance is what turns algorithmic altruism from a concept to something we can actually benefit from. We're talking about crossing that delicate line between helpful and intrusive. The real deal is safeguarding autonomy while leveraging tech to support our well-being. It's crucial that these algorithms maintain transparency and user control. Opt in, not opt out. For real impact, people need to trust the tech and understand how it makes decisions. And here's an essential tidbit. Empathy is complex. If we want AI to be genuine helpers rather than just sophisticated alarm clocks, they have to grasp context. We're light years away from truly empathetic machines, but even getting halfway there requires ironclad ethical programming and profound respect for privacy. It has to be about empowerment, never exploitation.
Tell you what, Joe, the day my coffee machine asks how I slept instead of just blindly brewing a cup, now that's when the future kicks down my door and says, hello.
When your coffee machine starts playing therapist, it's either a sign of the apocalypse or we're on to something genuinely revolutionary. Let's lean into the revolution for fun. But Simon, let's cut through the hype. That talking coffee machine is only as good as its data, and last time I checked, data doesn't dream. Algorithms run on input-output, not intuition. Sure, they might predict when I want my caffeine hit based on sleep patterns, but understand why I had a bad night. That's beyond their pay grade. Let's be real. Tech has no business in certain human experiences. We shouldn't be seduced by the novelty until machines prove they have the chops to handle the messy, non-binary nature of human emotions. Don't get me wrong, I'm all for innovation, but let's not trade genuine human connection for the convenience of having our appliances check in on us. Algorithmic altruism is intriguing, don't get me wrong, but it has to know its place.
Right on, Joe. Until my toaster can wipe away a tear or join in on a belly laugh, there's a clear line in the silicon sand. Sure, we're working towards smart every, but the heartbeat of experience is still ours to feel. We'll dance with these ideas, marvel at tech's leaps, and question how close it can get to the real deal. Until next time, where does everyone stand on giving machines a shot at understanding the human condition? Let's chew on that for a while.
Speaking of machines getting a grip on the human condition, Simon, it reminds me of the idea of AI chatbots stepping in as makeshift mediators. Picture this. Two people are arguing, let's say about whether pineapple belongs on pizza, and in swoops Chatbot 3000 to save the day. What could go wrong, right?
Oh boy, chatbots as peacekeepers? Imagine it. Hello humans, my algorithms detect a 78.3% increase in argumentativeness. Initiating peace protocol, would you prefer a joke or a deep breath? I mean, the idea has legs, funny ones. Could lead to some wacky misunderstandings, though. Who programs these things anyway? Are they on Team Pineapple or not? The bot could end up throwing digital hand grenades instead of olive branches.
No kidding, a biased bot could spark World War III over fruit on flatbread. It's the classic garbage in garbage out scenario. If the foundation isn't rock solid and neutrally slathered like tomato sauce, we're in for some tangy, tech-induced turmoil. But let's not toss the baby out with the bathwater. Say our chatbot doesn't just parse keywords, but it taps into sentiment analysis and diffuses tension with humor at just the right beat. Comedy is timing, after all. Yet getting that comic timing right, it's nowhere as easy as pie, pizza, or otherwise. There's potential if it's done tastefully, but leaving your argument up to an algorithm, it's got to be more than just a novelty act. It should really understand the toppings of the conversation. Otherwise, it might just serve reheated leftovers from yesterday's flame war buffet.
Oh, Joe, you just reminded me of the time my buddy and I were knee-deep in a heated debate about the best superhero, which, as you know, can get more intense than any pineapple pizza argument. We were like two dogs with a bone, neither backing down. Anyway, my phone's assistant pops up unsolicited and says, "Searching for superhero peace treaties." We burst out laughing. It was so random, so timely, it cut right through the tension. It didn't solve anything, but that moment of levity? Priceless. It showed me these chatbots might not fix our squabbles, but if they can toss in an unexpected chuckle, well, that might just be enough to remind us that in the end, it's all a bit ridiculous, whether we're talking caped crusaders or controversial toppings. Sometimes it's not about the bot understanding everything, but just breaking the ice enough so we can laugh and move on.
That's amazing. Your phone's assistant must have felt the superhero tension in the air. It seems like there's something oddly human about a random interruption that brings a touch of humor to an otherwise intense moment. Who would have thought a pocket-sized chunk of code could play referee? It really does make you wonder if chatbots, with all their quirks, might stumble upon being effective peacekeepers just by breaking the ice. Mistaking peace treaties for a heated superhero debate is pretty hilarious, but hey, it worked, right? They might not always get the context spot on, but as long as they're diffusing the bombs of our bickering with laughter, maybe we can let them join the Justice League of household harmony. After all, everyone needs a sidekick who's good for a laugh when the stakes are high, or just absurdly geeky.
Yeah, Joe, turns out the true hero in a debate might just be a confused chatbot trying to ease the tension. Makes you wonder, if they start cracking jokes about our arguments, could bots become the ultimate stand-up comics for tough talks?
Stand-up comic chatbots in the middle of a spat? I suppose they could try, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. Delivering jokes with the precision needed to diffuse tension isn't like troubleshooting your email sync issues. It's an art. See, humor is about relatability and timing, something even human comics struggle with. When chatbots start playing comic relief, unless they've dialed into the nuance of human sarcasm and wit, we're likely to see some cringe-worthy fails. A poorly timed joke could turn a minor disagreement into a full-blown frost fest. There's potential for greatness, or at least for some good chuckles, but it'll take a lot more than clever coding. It needs understanding context and audience, which no algorithm yet can truly grasp. So before our digital pals hit the comedy club circuit, they'd better make sure their punchlines don't become knockout blows to any fragile ceasefires.
Absolutely, Joe. A comedian chatbot might just misfire and turn a pizza debate frosty. For now, They're like rookies in the world of punchlines, potentially hilarious, but a gamble. So will these digital jesters evolve into peacekeeping virtuosos or remain lovable fools? Only time will tell. But for now, let's keep an ear out for their next gag in life's sitcom. What do you all think about entrusting our domestic detente to dorky bots with a sense of humor?
You know, Simon, all that talk about rookie chatbot comedians, it makes me think of how layers-deep AI roles in dispute resolution can get. Remember that Star Trek episode where Data has to negotiate peace between alien races? Pure sci-fi magic, but it gets you thinking. Will there be a day when we look at our own robo-mediators not just as a source of comedic relief, but as legitimate counselors?
Oh, for sure. Data was like everyone's dream diplomat, logical, fair, no ego trips. It paints this picture where AI mediators are efficient and immune to bias. But let's zoom back to reality. Are we ready to hand over the heart-to-hearts or neighborly niggles to a bot? I get the appeal. No judgment, just facts and fairness. If they can nail the nuance of being human without actually being human, it's tempting. Plus no arguing back, right? But will society go for it? Imagine telling your grandma she'll be airing her grievances to Alexa. Sci-fi's one thing, but life likes its plot twists, and that includes random cat interruptions during a mediation session, courtesy of your feline-loving counselor. Could AI really replicate that same personal touch? Something tells me folks might split 50-50 on that. Weirdly intriguing, slightly terrifying.
Sci-fi often dresses AI in utopian garb, but reality doesn't wear costumes. Sure, Data's a paragon of objectivity, and who wouldn't want a piece of that pie? Yet, entrusting our delicate disputes to algorithms isn't like picking the cleanest shirt for the day. Grandma's grievance with Alexa? That hits a nerve. She might not appreciate pouring her heart out or hashing out her will with a gadget that can't support her like a human being with empathy would. The reality is, AI might master data, but mastering the depth of human relationships? That's a whole other ballgame. Our capricious human nature craves a balance, someone who can read between the lines of what we say or don't. Someone who can appreciate a well-timed pause or sense the unsaid weight behind words. Can circuits catch that subtle inflection in your voice when you're about to crack? Most likely, they'd ask if you'd like a playlist for mood improvement. Realistically, there'll be a divide, those enchanted by tech solutions and others wary of losing the human element. Good mediation goes beyond just cold, hard logic. It embraces empathy and connection. And until AI can pull off those soft skills, I don't see traditional counselors going out of fashion anytime soon.
Hey listeners, big thanks for tuning in with us today and diving deep into the wild world of tech and human bridges. Remember to join us again tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern for another round of banter. Same podcast time, same podcast fun. Don't leave us hanging. Keep those earbuds primed for another episode that's sure to brew up something special. Catch you on the flip side.
And tomorrow, you're in for a treat. We'll dissect the secret lives of houseplants. Are they just quiet roommates, or do they gossip about us when the lights go out? Don't miss it. It's going to get wild, in a chlorophyll kind of way.
Let's be real. If your cactus starts whispering to your fern about your Netflix habits, we've got bigger things to chat about than AI mediators.